Casting our minds a few years ago, who would have ever imagined that besides the big pharma giants, the who is who in the healthcare industry would be some of these tech titans that we are experiencing today: Google, Amazon, Microsoft, and Apple. And the way they're going today, it'll be very soon that they will rule the healthcare industry. So what is causing this tectonic shift in our healthcare industry? The convergence of expanded access, the speed of innovation, and the advent of personalized care, and more importantly, the growing demand for healthy outcomes is creating ripples and changing the dynamics of our healthcare industry. It's very clear that consumers of today are not merely sufferers of diseases. They are super consumers whose choices are getting sophisticated by the day. In fact, this is one of the reasons why the healthcare industry is actually compelled to think of business models which are centered around consumer-centric solutions than the traditional R&D approaches. So at a time when technology is converging and boundaries are blurring, the one divide between products and services are blurring. So how do you create consumer-centric solutions that combine the best of both the worlds? The advantages without the disadvantages. So this brings me to the topic that I wanted to talk about, the world of Prodices. This was a term that was coined by a fellow pharmacist and an author, Josi Bernal, in this very seminal book, Pharma 2027, Evolve or Disappear, where he explained that Prodices is actually a hybridization of product and services where you pull in the features and advantages of either of them or both of them and create a compelling, solid value proposition for the consumer today. So friends, I had heard of this a few years ago when I read this book, and I actually thought to myself that while it looks complicated or a little difficult in the healthcare industry, we experience it daily in our daily life. Whenever we buy a consumer durable, like a fridge or a TV or even a computer, we have a service contract. Now, why do you have a service contract? It's because it obviously is an expensive investment. It's a long-term investment. And in that case, you always think that many times the kind of products you buy are often those which give you much better service contracts. So coming from the same logic, even in the healthcare world, why would you not have looking at your patients as long-term investments? Your brand is servicing them to the long term. And therefore, the kind of services that you have today are still very few, the like of telecounseling, or maybe a website, or maybe some apps. And many times, these are discretionary. And most of the time, they're used to launch a brand, or maybe break the clutter in a very crowded market. And to that extent, this kind of Prodices model are non-negotiable, are not treated non-negotiable and holistic. Now, why is it non-negotiable? I'm going to take you back to one of the favorite, television serials that we all have grown up with. That is Star Trek. So in Star Trek, there is a very nice, tricorder, which is used by Captain Kirk, which was a handheld device, which when you use it on the human body, can diagnose any kind of ailment. In that sense, just like how these tricorders, which actually are seemingly futuristic, and they actually talk of it 300 years later, but the way technology is advancing today, these tricorders will be as primitive as the pagers that we have. Just like how you have your bathroom scales telling your weight, your smartphones today can actually tell you how you feel, how is your health. Yes, friends, the future of medicine is this very integration of technology and the human body. In fact, a more futuristic model is when you start using your Prodices model across the continuum of care. And if you want to understand how it works across the continuum of care, then you need to map the disease journey of any patient who is suffering from it, whether it is during the diagnosis stage or the treatment adherence stage or the monitoring or at the end of the disease. And across this continuum of care, you could find opportunities for intervention with your Prodices. And that is precisely the reason why these interventions are not easy to do, because it cannot be done by one single company. You really need collaborations of different kinds, and to many extent, the kind of acquisitions, the kind of collaboration that is happening in our industry is actually a proof towards this. In many chronic diseases, Prodices are actually taking birth, one of them being diabetes. You will see that Abbott has got a very interesting glucose monitoring system called as the Freestyle Libre Pro Flash. This particular system actually monitors the glucose level in your body through the day over a 24-hour period. So you can imagine that the time your glucose starts fluctuating, you get hypoglycemia or hyperglycemia. And in many cases, doctors can titrate the drug or the dose depending on your body. But is that enough? Imagine that you also now are able to provide far more better supportive care through real-time diet, exercise, and lifestyle modification. Now, this is actually a brilliant example of Prodices work, where you have your bouquet of products and their advisory services working in conjunction to give patients a healthy outcome. In fact, friends, there are far more collaborations happening in the world of neurology. And the kind of marriages which are happening between companies are very intriguing. So you have companies, healthcare companies, working together with music companies, media and entertainment companies, with gaming companies. And that is because music has a great role to play in neurology. In fact, scientists have very well discovered this fact that the musical memory is actually spared through the journey of Alzheimer's disease. And in many cases, the way we whistle, the way we sing, the way we actually listen to our beats belongs to another part of the brain and not the cognitive function, according to the Alzheimer's Association of America. Researchers have actually proved that music therapy can be very protective for preserving the cognitive functions of the brain. And this, you can imagine, when used as an adjunct therapy for Alzheimer's patients, can actually help them to navigate their patient journey much more easily. Taking music to another neurological condition is Parkinson's. Now, we all know that Parkinson's disease is now treated with drugs and also with brain surgery. And what is interesting is, while some symptoms can be alleviated with these drugs and surgery, what is a problem is the ability to walk. So most Parkinson's patients have a very poor quality of life because they often trip and fall and they have fractures. And I must take you to one of the demonstrations of how this music is actually helping Parkinson's patients to walk better.
Music. There's vast scientific evidence of the benefits of auditory stimuli for Parkinson's patients.
O cérebro, por causa da pérdida de dopamina, está meio que bagunçado. A música sincronizaria, seria como aquele geral que chega no cérebro e fala: ó, para aí, estou te dando uma ordem, vamos caminhar agora.
It happens three ways. Music provides rhythm for patients to control their steps. Music promotes new neural connections in healthy areas of the brain. And music releases dopamine, a natural chemical involved in pleasure and motor control. So how can we connect this knowledge to people's lives? Introducing Parkin Sounds, powered by Spotify. Parkin Sounds helps patients find their ideal pace. It automatically selects the songs that match that beat from any Spotify playlist, and Parkin Sounds can add audio cues to the patient's favorite songs.
Isn't that a brilliant example of Prodices? You can imagine that how one can create such stunning examples of helping patients deal with their problems, whether it's depression, whether it's schizophrenia, and a host of other diseases, even in the area of pain management. In fact, this concept, Parkin Sounds, was something which my parent company, which is based in Brazil, one of the subsidiaries in Brazil, that's why you're hearing the Spanish words, they combined them, they collaborated with a music company called as Universal Music Group, which also belongs to our parent company, and Spotify. And they together created this concept called Parkin Sounds. It's a big challenge for us that every year we have to look at working and coming up with such kind of ideas. And I'm sure there are many people in this room who would love to collaborate on such opportunities. So from music, let me take you to the world of gamification. Healthcare gamification is getting hotter by the day. In fact, this industry is growing at a compounded average growth rate of almost 55% to be a $4.2 billion industry in 2022. Microsoft is investing hugely in the space of healthcare gamification for individuals and organizations to create achievement-led activities. So gamification is one space where even a lot of smaller, innovative companies are getting into. One such is the Super Better app. The Super Better app was designed to help daily activity goals, your mental health goals, and based on that, rewards were created. In fact, these companies are doing research with various universities. And one such research that they did with the University of Pennsylvania actually demonstrated that when patients started using the app, they had a much better resilience, a much better quality of life, and they actually had reduction in their anxiety and depressive symptoms to lead a much happier and fulfilling life. So that was really where you have these kind of companies launching apps. What about Apple? I'm sure at some point we're all using our wearables, and Apple is always in the front end of this. They have been rewarding their iPhone users and Apple Watch users with multiple rewards for various daily activity goals that have been achieved, whether it is biking, hiking, or exercising. And they even combine it with the kind of calorie loss that you have through the day. And this is exactly what they're doing in special days where they actually have badges for some of the special days, like you have April 22nd, which is Earth Day. If you exercise for something like 30 minutes, you get special badges. But gamification is also a children's domain, right? So here is something which I want to show you. This is what J&J, when they launched one of their Muppet Band-Aids. They actually had a QR code on the Band-Aid, and parents could use the smartphone on that QR code when a toddler has scraped his knee. And this toddler is obviously taken to the world of entertainment. So when the Kermit Frog is singing his blues away, our toddler has obviously forgotten his wounds. But on a serious note, there have been games which have been designed for children suffering from cancer. And this was something that was helping the clinical care team to track the progress of children who are suffering from the pain of cancer so that they could design the different products and the pain management during the cancer journey. Now, can you imagine such kind of advances which are happening in the world of Prodices? Gamification, my dear friends, is really something that is far more gratifying. It's also giving you thrills. It builds your inner resilience. It makes you want to achieve more, want to feel more successful. And that is the reason why gamification has also been used for behavior change, specifically in healthy behavior changes. And that's why I feel that in time to come, the gamification industry, especially in healthcare games, will be growing much more rapidly. So friends, having said that, we are obviously seeing a whole lot of companies trying to change their business models, trying to build a more futuristic venture in managing patients and their diseases. Having said that, I must tell you a very personal experience that I could actually experience with Prodices. So my mother had arthritis, and she was a rheumatoid arthritis patient for almost 10 years, very much in pain. And she used to take almost 3 to 4 painkillers right through the day. Obviously, being a pharmacist, I already knew that this was going to hurt her intestines really badly. And I always thought, how should I distract her from taking all these painkillers? So obviously, I couldn't avoid all of them. But what I found was exactly somewhere around 6 o'clock, she would take this painkiller to possibly protect herself from the pain that she would go through in the night. And that's the time I started replacing that with the church songs. We come from a Syrian Christian family, so we have Orthodox songs, which my mother had grown up with. And she used to find that as a perfect antidote to get over her pain. And this actually became a habit. And over the period of possibly the 3 to 4 years before her death, we were able to alleviate her pain and her suffering and give her a much better quality of life. And what it really tells you that it's time that we own the ailment rather than just treat the disease. Because when you own the ailment, you're looking at products, services, and solutions along the continuum of care. And that is what a whole host of companies which are today entering into this space are doing. Because with their product models, they are really addressing consumer centricity at the heart of everything that they do. So before I end my talk, I would like to quote one of the famous quotes of Steve Jobs, who clearly mentioned that the biggest innovations of the 21st century will be the intersection of technology and biology. And that's why a new era is beginning. Thank you so much.